Do we have a house full of hurt people? Lucy is still got some real problems with her back left. We don't know. We don't know what it is. We think it's pulled muscles. We took her to the vet. The vet said it was pulled muscles. But, she screams and cries and we lift her up to put her on the bed and stuff like that. And my wife, her back is gone out. She is in bed right now. So, I am sitting on the front porch, drinking some water. And I've been thinking about doing this video about motorcycle group riding tips. I don't know. My thoughts. I think I'll call it that. My thoughts on group riding. There's a lot to group riding. It's not just hopping on your motorcycle and having a bunch of people follow you. Now, if you're a road captain, now if you're just a bunch of kids blasting around on your motorcycles, it's not so important. But when you are designated to lead a group, first and foremost, you have to be the kind of person that cares about the safety and well-being of the people you're leading. Even if you don't know them, you have to have the basic human concern. Lucy, come lay down, baby. Come lay down. Come on. Okay, get up here, sweetie. Get up here. All right. You're just determined not to lay on this soft, cushiony mattress. Even if you don't know the people well, you have to have the basic concern for the safety and well-being of other people, or you shouldn't be road captain. And another thing is, if you're one of those that cannot be flexible in the speed you're going or how often you stop, then you shouldn't ride in a group. Because that's another thing that you have to, as road captain, you have to consider all the people that are in your group and carefully imagine, if you can, what the likely skill levels of each rider is. There are some people who don't ride, but, in the best of days and the best of circumstances, and they may not put 1,000 miles a year on a motorcycle. Well, in their mind, they've had a motorcycle for 10 years. They're highly skilled. But the truth is, if you don't put thousands and thousands and thousands of miles on a motorcycle, you're not highly skilled. You've just had a motorcycle for a long time. And there are things that you have to practice daily to be a good motorcycle rider or a skilled motorcycle rider. So you kind of talk to people and feel them out, and you can sort of imagine or guess their level of skill, and you drive appropriately to accommodate what you think that person's skill level is. You don't want to drive faster than people are comfortable going around curves. You don't want to make them not enjoy the group ride. So if you have highly skilled riders who are not flexible enough to go slower to accommodate riders that may not be as skilled, then those are not people you want in your group. Those are people that should ride by themselves or with other people who they, think are at their level of skill. And then there's things that you have to remember as road captain while you're driving. Curves are one thing. Some people are not. I won't say, I'm not going to mention names, but in a group ride a while back, as a matter of fact, it was last year, there was a guy, and I was looking in my mirror, and I could tell that he had a problem with turning, and he would swing super, super wide, even into oncoming traffic, because he was afraid to lean his bike over far enough to make a tight turn at a slow speed. So I slowed down. When I made right turns, I slowed down to accommodate him. Nothing needs to be spoken. You don't need to talk about it. It's just something you recognize. And as road captain, you spend nearly as much time looking in your mirror, checking on the well-being of your group, as you do looking forward, looking out for stuff in the road and looking for your turn. So there's a lot to driving in a group, and there's a lot to accepting the responsibility of other people's well-being and their enjoyment as road captain. Let's say you're getting on an interstate or leaving a stop sign. The more people you have in a group, there's this elastic band effect that happens. So if you come up to a stop sign as road captain and then you take off like a bat out of hell, just 1 second, I gotta go wait on my wife. Okay, where was I? I was talking about leaving stop signs or accelerating and get on an interstate. If you're in the front and you take off like a bat out of hell, that means the second guy behind you has to go a little faster to keep up, and the third guy a little faster to keep up. And if you've got even a half a dozen bikes, the people on the back, I mean, they're driving way faster than what people would typically drive on a ride they wanted to putt and enjoy, trying to keep up to you. So as road captain, you take off slow and gentle, and the other day this happened to us. The guy in the lead, it's like he had no mirrors. On the way out there, it was a nice, easy ride. And when I did change lanes, I checked. Basically, my wife was on the very back, and we have Bluetooth communication. So I could tell her, okay, I'm going to stay behind this big truck here. And when that red pickup truck passes you, grab the left lane, and when it passes me, we'll all move over. We'll pass the big truck, and we'll get back over in the right. And you have to, when you don't just throw everybody behind you to the wolves, it's easier to slow down and follow a truck for a little while till it's safe for all of us to pass than it is for everybody to make their own way. And then they're back to hauling ass trying to catch up to you. There's a synchronicity. It's a choreography, a ballet. I mean, you have to see the big picture and take all motorcycles into consideration with every move you make, whether it's changing lanes or making a turn. You have to signal far enough away from your turn so that everybody knows you're turning, or you're going to have wrecks. You're going to have motorcycles banging into each other. And then when you make your turn, you putt, and you look in your mirror, and you make sure everybody's made it around the turn, and then you accelerate and take off. I don't mean you go so slow to cause a wreck, but you don't run off and leave people and make them go really fast to try and catch up to you. It's a whole different ball game than when you're riding by yourself. So if you're a self-centered person who never is able to think about the people behind them, you're not the person that should be leading a ride. There was something else that was pretty important. Let me stop this. I'll be back. Well, this wasn't what I was going to talk about, but this is something that's just as important. I mentioned flexibility and speed. The other day, when we rode out there to Ben Whaler, I was going about 70, 71, 72 in that neighborhood. Now, I base this, my opinion, on many, 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 many millions of miles of driving on the interstate. I drove an 18-wheeler all my life. So I have, well, we were 12 years with one company. We put 3 million miles on with them. And I drove 28 years before that. So I have millions of miles of interstate driving to tell you this. If everybody else is going 75 or faster, do you want to be the one that's constantly having to find a hole to get over in and pass? Or do you want to putt, have a nice, leisurely, comfortable ride, a little bit slower than the speed limit, and everybody gets to enjoy the scenery, and occasionally you might come across somebody that you have to pass, and the difference at the end of the day is going to be a matter of minutes of when you get to your destination. When you go a little bit slower than the average flow of traffic, you have to pass far less frequently. And I can tell you this, changing lanes is when most accidents happen, is changing lanes. And that's government statistics. I'm talking about on the interstate. Most horrible wrecks on the interstate happen as a result of a lane change that didn't go well. So you are exposing yourself to far more danger than just traveling in a straight line when you have to constantly clear traffic and change lanes and then get back over. And if you just go a couple of miles an hour slower than the average flow of traffic, you have a much more stress-free and relaxed ride. And if you're on your motorcycle and you're in a hurry, riding in a group is not something you should be doing, because nobody joins a group ride because they want to get somewhere fast. I haven't wrote anything down. These are just thoughts I've had in my head. And, I got a sick dog and now a hurt wife, so I got a lot on my mind. So let me think a little more about what else I want to talk about group riding. Okay, that's another thought. I mentioned not taking off like a bat out of hell after a stop sign or getting on the interstate, because that makes everybody behind you, the further back, the faster they got to go to keep up. And it's the same thing with coming up to a turn or coming up to a stop. You want to gradually slow down, gradually downshift. You don't want to come up to abrupt stops, because that makes everybody else have to stop faster. Same thing. And there's a lot to keep in mind when you're the lead dog, when you're the road captain. I mean, you may not be called a road captain. If you're leading a ride, that may not be what your official title. You may just be in front of a bunch of motorcycles. But if you're leading a ride, these are all things you need to keep in mind. And being a person who cares about not only the safety, but you don't want people to get in your ride, in your group, and have a bad time. You want people to enjoy it. That's why you group ride. And if you're the kind of lead who doesn't have that mindset that you want everybody to start and stop safely, get there safely, arrive at the same time. Oh, here's another thing. In my group, it seems like most everybody is older folks, 50s up to 70s. And as you get older, man, you got to pee more often. That's just, a fact of life. So you got to keep that in mind. We all have needs, and some people have to stop every 50, 60 miles and get a drink of water or stretch their legs to work a cramp out, or pee. So you got to keep that in mind. And there's nothing wrong with stopping to make sure everybody's comfortable. And it gives you a chance to shoot the breeze. I mean, you're around people that are like-minded, enjoy motorcycles, so you get to talk to them a little bit. And, stopping every 50, 60, 65 or 70 miles is probably a good thing for everybody. Because motorcycle seats are not built for comfort, that's for sure. And I don't know anybody that can spend hours in their seat and not have a hurt back and aching hips and a tailbone that's screaming. But, all right, that's not it. I'll be back. Okay, here's another thought. There's also the other end of the spectrum. I mentioned that guy who was in a group ride last year that in my mirror I kept seeing every turn we would take, he was afraid to lean his bike into, I'm talking about like coming up and just slowing down and making a right turn onto another street. He wouldn't lean his bike over. He would go way out into even the oncoming side of the highway. And then later on, he mentioned how fast I was going. And I specifically started going much, much slower because I saw that he was having such a hard time making turns. So some people just should not ride in a group because It's hard to admit when your skill level isn't high enough to keep up with other people. And that guy, he seemed like a nice guy, but when I heard him complaining about how fast I was going, my immediate thought was, dude, if you couldn't keep up, I mean, I was going so slow where I was afraid my motorcycle wasn't going to stay upright. So if that's your skill level, group riding is not something you should do, because you're putting other people in danger. If you can't be, I don't know, reasonable about critiquing your own level of skill and honestly admit that maybe you're endangering other people. Here's the bottom line. If you suck, don't get in a group ride, because you're endangering other people. Get better at riding your motorcycle and then come join the group. And there's that level of two. So you got two levels. You got two ends of the spectrum. You got those who go way too fast and could care less about the people behind them. And you got those that are not skilled enough to be in a group ride. And 99.9% of the people fall in between that. Okay, here's another tip. If you have accepted the responsibility of being a road captain, of leading a group, then you also have the responsibility to know where you're going, know the routes, know the exits, and having looked at a map and picked a place to stop and fuel, that's okay. Here's another thing. You have varying heights of motorcycle riders. And most motorcycles are built around men and women of average height. And if your legs are shorter than the average height, you have a harder time holding your motorcycle up. I mean, if you have long legs, you can let your motorcycle lean pretty good and hold it up, because you can get your leg out far enough to push it back up. But if you've got short legs, you have far less angle that you can let your motorcycle lean and still be able to get your legs on the ground and push it up comfortably. So you have to be careful where you pull over. You don't want to pull over where there's a bunch of gravel, because loose gravel is bad for any motorcycle rider when you're trying to hold your bike up. But it's even harder for people whose legs do not go out as far as yours. I hate to use the word short, because I don't want to insult anyone. I have very long legs, so I'm very fortunate. But people who don't have long legs have a harder time unless they lower their motorcycle. And some people don't want to go through the expense of lowering their motorcycle. They'd just rather deal with the less of a lean angle that they have. So as road captain, you need to know the routes. You need to know your exits and know your fuel stops. And don't pull a whole bunch of people into a fuel stop where there's gravel or a dirt parking lot. And you just want to make the stops safe for people of varying leg lengths. Here's just a side note. I was talking about adjusting your speed to just slightly under the average speed. Let's say the average speed in Texas was 75 or 73 or thereabouts. And if you hit your cruise at 70, 71, your need to pass will happen far, far less frequently, and you'll enjoy your ride more. You'll arrive wherever you're getting with less stress. And my wife and I were long-haul truckers, and we were owner-operators, and all the trucks we ever had would go well over 100. We never, ever did that. As a matter of fact, we would set our cruise on 65. We had a regular run, Houston to Dallas, Dallas to LA, LA back to Houston. And we would get from Dallas to LA, we would do it in 23 hours every time. I mean, unless there was bad weather or wrecks. But 23 hours was pretty much... And we would have people pass us all day long, same trucks, over and over and over and over, and never get anywhere quicker than when we got there. As a matter of fact, we would have people from the same company doing 75 and 80 miles an hour, and we would always arrive in LA at the same time, a little ahead or a little behind. And we would always be stress-free with a truck that got far better fuel mileage, tires that got less hot and didn't wear out as quick, an engine that was less stressed and you could stretch the oil change a little longer. I mean, it was just so much better going under the speed limit than to match everybody else. It's sort of like you remove yourself from the aggressive road raging rat race when you try to keep up with everyone. And when you're the one that everybody's having to figure out a way to get around, your stress is almost eliminated. And it's the same thing on a motorcycle. I'm not saying set your cruise on 65 and a 75, but I'm saying if you do go slower than the average speed and your goal is not to get there quickly, just to enjoy a ride, you would certainly want less stress in your ride, and that's one way to do it. Here's another one, communication. The other day, we had a guy lead the group that just took off and left us. And he wasn't the one that I had intended to lead the group, but it just happened that way. And it was sort of my fault. Communication. I didn't, we're all sitting there eating and joking and telling lies and stories and having a good time. And I told everybody but that guy who I wanted to lead on the way back, because I didn't say this out loud, but I knew him to be an experienced group rider. So I wanted to be on the back to get some GoPro footage. And so that was the intention. And that guy, sort of jumped on the front. And that was my fault. I didn't communicate well enough that what my intentions were. And I guess here's another thing. When you are road captain, it has to be understood by everybody that you make the final decisions, and it's perfectly okay that if people are not okay with that, to leave the group. When you accept responsibility for a bunch of riders, for both their safety and their enjoyment, you also have the responsibility to pick the people that you want to do certain things. And most folks who have agreed to let you be road captain also agree to let you use your judgment. And it's, occasional, but you're going to find people who take exception to being, what they may perceive as being told what to do or whatever. It's and you certainly want to give as few directives as possible, because nobody likes being ordered around, and you have to be the kind of person that could suggest things without sounding like a prick. You know what I mean? You don't want to be a bossy jerk. And I'll give you an example of the way you feel people out to get an understanding of their level of experience. Let's say a guy shows up for a group ride and you're not sure where to put him in your group or how fast you should go to accommodate his level. Let's just say he's got a bike. You go over and you introduce yourself and you say, "Man, that's a good looking bike. What year is it?" Oh, so you find out that it's a 6-year-old bike, right? I say, "Oh man, that thing looks brand new. How many miles has it got on it?" 2,000 miles. So there you go. You just figured out that this guy's had a motorcycle for 6 years, bought it brand new, has only put 2,000 miles on it. So now you have a real good picture of his level of skill. What I'm saying is there's judicious ways of being a good road captain without being an offensive prick. And that's what I mean. I think I'll end it there. So if you've gotten this far, Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.